You are spending $500 a year on chicken feed from the feed store. Your hens are still not laying as many eggs as they should. And the reason is not that you are feeding them the wrong brand of feed. The reason is that you are feeding them dead processed grain instead of letting them feed themselves the way chickens have fed themselves for thousands of years. Every time you drive to the feed store and load another 50 lb bag into your truck, you are paying for something that your garden provides for free. The feed store knows this. The feed companies know this. But they have convinced you that chickens need commercial feed, that chickens cannot survive on what they find in a garden. And this is a lie, because chickens are not domestic animals that need to be fed like dogs or cats. Chickens are foraging birds. They are designed by nature to scratch and peck and hunt for insects and eat greens and balance their own diet. And when you let them do this, they lay more eggs, they are healthier, and you never buy feed again. This is not some modern homesteading experiment. This is how John Seymour kept chickens for decades, using 3 systems that eliminate the need for commercial feed. These systems cost nothing to set up. They improve your garden while feeding your chickens, and they produce eggs that are richer and healthier than anything you can buy at a grocery store. And I am going to show you exactly how to do this. Now, here's what I'm going to show you. I am going to show you 3 systems that will eliminate your dependence on the feed store. These are not complicated systems. These are simple, practical methods that integrate your chickens into your garden so that they feed themselves while improving your soil. The first system is the chicken tractor method, which is a mobile run that you move across your garden bed so the chickens eat insects and weeds and manure the soil. The second system is the Balfour rotation method, which uses 2 grazing pens planted with grass and clover, so the chickens always have fresh greens to eat. The third system is the orchard access method, which lets your chickens roam among your fruit trees in winter so they eat the insects that would otherwise harm your trees. And when you combine these 3 systems with the Worthington feeding method, which is simply letting your chickens eat as much as they want of whatever they want, you will never buy commercial feed again. Seymour writes that chickens should be allowed ample green stuff, whole grain, and some high-protein food. They will balance their own diet and lay plenty of eggs. And this is the system I'm going to teach you. The first system is the chicken tractor method. This was developed at the Santa Barbara Urban Farm Project in California. Seymour writes that this is still at an experimental stage, but it should considerably improve the fertility of your garden. The concept is simple. You build a mobile chicken run that fits exactly over one of your deep beds. The run has no floor. It is just a frame covered with wire netting. You can move it easily by 2 people. Here is how it works. You plant a deep bed with rye or some other quick-growing grazing crop a month or 2 beforehand. Then you place the chicken tractor over that bed. The chickens spend 2 or 3 weeks scratching and pecking in that bed. They eat all the insects they can find. They eat all the weeds. They eat the rye or whatever grazing crop you planted. And they manure the bed deeply while they are doing this. After 2 or 3 weeks, you move the tractor to the next bed, which you have already planted with another grazing crop. The old bed is now well manured and weed-free. You dig it up and plant vegetables or fruit. This is the system. You rotate the chicken tractor across your garden beds. The chickens feed themselves while preparing your beds for planting. Seymour writes that the hens manure the bed, scratch it over deeply, and eat all the insects they can find. They also destroy all the weeds. When another bed is ready to receive them, you just move the tractor onto it, and the old bed will be well manured and weed-free. Now, here is what makes the chicken tractor system so powerful. It is not just that the chickens are feeding themselves. It is that they are doing work that you would otherwise have to do, and they are doing it better than you could do it. Because when you weed a bed by hand, you miss weeds. When you try to kill insects by hand, you miss insects. But chickens do not miss anything. They scratch every inch of soil. They find every weed seed. They eat every insect. And they leave behind manure that is richer than any fertilizer you can buy. This is what Seymour means when he writes that chickens may well make the difference between success and failure in a small garden. Because chickens are not just producing eggs. They are producing fertility. The chicken tractor method captures this fertility and concentrates it exactly where you need it, on your garden beds. The chickens are eating rye and insects and weeds, which means they are feeding themselves and you are not buying feed. The only thing you need to do is plant a quick-growing grazing crop a month or two before you move the tractor onto each bed. Rye is perfect for this because it grows fast, it grows in poor soil, and chickens love it. The second system is the Balfour rotation method. This was developed by Lady Eve Balfour. Seymour writes that this method has several advantages. The concept is that you have 3 pens, one scratching pen where the chickens spend most of their time, and 2 grazing pens that are planted with a grass, clover, and herb mixture. Here is how it works. The 2 grazing pens are fenced so that the chickens can be admitted into one pen while being denied access to the other. You allow the chickens to run in one pen for 2 or 3 weeks until the grass is eaten right down. Then you admit them to the other pen. The first pen regrows while the second pen is being grazed. You keep rotating them back and forth. The chickens are eating fresh grass and clover and herbs all year round. They are feeding themselves and you are not buying feed. The scratching pen is where the chickens spend the rest of their time. This is just a small area with a floor made of compost material, kitchen scraps, vegetable waste, straw, bracken, lawn mowings, everything you can lay your hands on. The chickens spend hours scrapping around in this material, looking for worms and earwigs and other insects. Every few weeks, you empty the scratching pen completely and build it into a proper compost pile. Seymour writes that the main thing is that the scratching pen provides a quantity of magnificent compost. This is the system. The chickens are feeding themselves on grass and clover and insects. They are producing compost and you are not buying feed. Now here is what makes the Balfour rotation method so practical. It is that the system is self-sustaining. Because once you plant the 2 grazing pens with grass and clover and herbs, those plants keep growing back. The chickens keep eating them. You do not need to replant. You do not need to buy seed. You just rotate the chickens between the 2 pens and the grass regrows. This is how chickens fed themselves for thousands of years. They grazed on grass and clover. They scratched for insects. They laid eggs. And no one was buying commercial feed. Seymour writes that the 2 pens should be put down to a grass, clover, and herb mixture. You allow the hens to run in one pen for 2 or 3 weeks until the grass is eaten right down. Then you admit them to the other. Because the hens are doing most of their scratching in the scratching pen, they should not tear up the grazing pens too severely. And if you find that they do, you can limit their access to only a few hours a day. This is the beauty of the system. It is flexible. You adjust it to your situation, and the chickens are feeding themselves. The third system is the orchard access method. This is the simplest system of all. Seymour writes that you should give your hens access to your soft fruit patch and to your tree fruit orchard during the winter. The reason is that hens can roam among fruit trees in summer and winter. They do a lot of good by killing many of the insects that would otherwise harm the trees. They fertilize the soil around the trees. They are feeding themselves on insects and fallen fruit. And you are not buying feed. But there is a timing issue, and this is critical because Seymour writes that hens do a good job among soft fruit bushes too. Except that obviously you cannot leave them there when the fruit is ripe, or they will eat it. There is also a danger that they will eat the buds in spring, but certainly in winter it can do nothing but good to let them run among your bushes and trees. You will be sparing your Balfour grazing pens so that they are more productive when spring comes, and the hens have to be moved away from your soft fruit. This is the system. You let your chickens roam in your orchard from November through February. They eat insects. They eat fallen fruit. They fertilize the soil. Then in March, when the buds start to form, you move them out. In summer, when the fruit is ripe, you keep them out. This is how you protect your fruit while still getting the benefits of having chickens in the orchard. Now here is what makes the orchard access method so valuable. It is that the chickens are doing pest control, and they are doing it better than any spray or trap because they are eating the insects that overwinter in the soil around your trees. These are the insects that will attack your fruit in summer. By letting your chickens eat them in winter, you are preventing pest problems before they start. Seymour writes that hens can roam among fruit trees, and they do a lot of good by killing many of the insects that would otherwise harm the trees and by fertilizing the soil around the trees. This is free pest control. This is free fertilization. The chickens are feeding themselves and you are not buying feed. The only thing you need to do is remember to move them out in spring before the buds form. Because if you leave them in the orchard in spring, they will eat the buds. If you leave them in summer, they will eat the ripe fruit. Seymour writes that certainly in winter, it can do nothing but good to let them run among your bushes and trees. Now here is how you tie all three systems together with the Worthington feeding method. This is the method that Seymour personally favors. He writes that there are several views about feeding chickens. Most orthodox methods recommend feeding a dry mash, prepared in controlled quantities, but he personally favors the Worthington method, which was developed by Jim Worthington. This is simply that you allow hens ample green stuff, which means a lot of green stuff, not just cabbage. You also let them have access to whole grain. Wheat is best, and some high-protein foods such as fish meal. You let them eat as much as they want of whatever they want. You will find that they eat a balanced diet, do not overeat, and lay plenty of eggs. Seymour writes that what they eat will in practice average out at about 4 1/2 oz, which is 128 grade of wheat per day each, and well under half an oz, which is 14 grade of fish meal. For fish meal, you can substitute any other high-protein food. Soy meal, chickpeas. This is the method. You give them green stuff from the chicken tractor. You give them grass and clover from the Balfour rotation. You give them insects from the orchard. You supplement with whole wheat and a little bit of fish meal or soy meal. They balance their own diet. They lay plenty of eggs, and you are spending almost nothing on feed. Here is what you are feeding your chickens with the three systems. From the chicken tractor system, you are giving them rye, weeds, and insects. This is green stuff and protein. It is free because you are growing the rye as a cover crop, and the weeds and insects are already in your garden. From the Balfour rotation system, you are giving them grass, clover, herbs, and insects from the scratching pen. This is green stuff and protein. It is free because the grass and clover keep regrowing, and the insects are in the compost material. From the orchard access system, you are giving them insects, fallen fruit, and whatever greens grow under your trees. This is protein and carbohydrates. It is free because the insects and fruit are already there. And then you supplement with whole wheat and fish meal or soy meal. Here is the cost reality. With the three systems, your chickens are getting most of their food from the garden. Seymour writes that they will eat as much as they want. What they want is mostly green stuff and insects. They only eat a little bit of grain and protein supplement. In practice, most people cut feed costs by about $200 a year, and the eggs are better. Your hens are healthier, your eggs are richer, and your garden is more fertile. Here is the practical timeline for implementing the three systems. In spring, which is March through May, you plant your first deep bed with rye or another quick-growing grazing crop. You let it grow for 1 or 2 months. In the meantime, you build your chicken tractor. This is just a simple frame made from 2x4s covered with wire netting. It should be built to fit exactly over one of your deep beds. Seymour writes that the run itself can be built to fit exactly over the standard 20 mm 2x5F deep bed. If you do not use deep beds, then build the run to fit over the dimensions of your vegetable beds. You also plant your 2 Balfour grazing pens with a grass, clover, and herb mixture. You let that grow through spring and early summer. In summer, which is June through August, you move your chicken tractor onto the first bed that you planted with rye. The chickens spend 2 or 3 weeks eating the rye and the weeds and the insects. Then you move the tractor to a second bed that you have already planted with another grazing crop. You dig up the first bed and plant it with vegetables. You also start rotating your chickens between the 2 Balfour grazing pens. They are eating grass and clover all summer. In fall, which is September through November, you continue rotating the chicken tractor across your beds. You continue rotating the Balfour pens. In November, you give your chickens access to your orchard. They start eating insects and fallen fruit. In winter, which is December through February, your chickens are in the orchard. They are eating insects and fertilizing your trees. You are also still rotating the Balfour pens if the grass is still growing. You are feeding them whole wheat and fish meal or soy meal as a supplement. This is the system. You rotate through the seasons. Your chickens are feeding themselves, and you are not buying commercial feed. Here is what Seymour writes about why this system works. This is the philosophy that ties everything together. He writes that chickens may well make the difference between success and failure in a small garden, because all the vegetable matter you can get, the more the better. All the kitchen scraps, all the waste material from the garden, Plenty of straw, bracken, spoiled hay, grass clippings, lawn mowings, everything you can lay your hands on goes into it. Your hens spend hours scrapping around in this material because worms, earwigs, and other insects abound in it. This is the key. Chickens are not pets. Chickens are workers. They are part of your garden system. When you integrate them into your garden, they feed themselves while improving your soil. This is what the three systems do. The chicken tractor improves your beds. The Balfour rotation produces compost and keeps your chickens fed on grass and clover. The orchard access controls pests and fertilizes your trees. All three systems eliminate the need for commercial feed. Seymour writes that if you let hens eat as much as they want of whatever they want, you will find that they eat a balanced diet. Do not overeat and lay plenty of eggs. This is the Worthington method. Trust your chickens. Let them balance their own diet. Give them access to green stuff and insects and a little bit of grain and protein, and they will feed themselves. Now here's the result of implementing these three systems. This is what you can expect in the first year and beyond. In the first year, you will spend about $200 on materials to build the chicken tractor and fence the Balfour grazing pens. You will spend about $264 on wheat and fish meal or soy meal. This is a total of $464, but you will save about $200 compared to buying commercial feed. So your net cost in the first year is $264. In the second year and every year after that, you will only spend $264 on wheat and protein supplement. You will save $200 per year. Your garden beds will be more fertile because of the chicken tractor. You will have magnificent compost from the Balfour scratching pen. Your fruit trees will have fewer pests because of the orchard access. Your hens will lay more eggs because they are eating fresh greens and insects instead of dead processed grain. Seymour writes that hens that are allowed to forage and eat a varied diet lay eggs that are richer in color and flavor and nutrition. This is the system. You invest a little bit of time and money in the first year, then you never buy commercial feed again, and your chickens feed themselves while improving your garden. Here is what this system really means. This is the shift in thinking that Seymour is teaching. It is that chickens are not an expense. Chickens are an asset. When you keep chickens in a cage and feed them commercial feed, you are treating them as an expense. You are spending money every month to keep them alive. But when you integrate chickens into your garden using the three systems, you are treating them as an asset. They are producing eggs. They are producing fertility. They are producing compost. They are controlling pests. And they are feeding themselves. This is what self-sufficiency means. It does not mean doing everything yourself. It means building systems that work without constant input. The three systems work. The chicken tractor works. The Balfour rotation works. The orchard access works. Once you set them up, they keep working year after year. Seymour writes that nearly all country people kept hens. Their gardens were enormously productive, bursting with fertility. The reason is that the hens were integrated into the garden. This is what you are doing with the three systems. You are integrating your chickens into your garden, and you never buy feed again. If this story changes the way you look at the birds in your garden and the potential of your land, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history and the practical wisdom they tried to bury. Plant the future. The next treasure of self-sufficiency will open soon.